Welcome to Massive Beers. My name is Matt. We do the beer stuff here. We do end of year beer stuff, present beer stuff, future beer stuff. Ooh. Yeah, as is the habit for most of us who do all this kind of stuff. We do like a year in review or a best ofs, all that kind of thing. And I'm not one who doesn't do those things. I used to do like a crazy amount of stuff for the end of the year stuff. I used to do, my favorite Hazie's, my favorite stouts, my favorite mystery beers, yada, 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 the whole nine, favorite shelfies, all that kind of stuff. A little bit too long, a little bit too drawn out for me now that I have limited time with the family and all that kind of stuff. Good things, all good things. But I still like to do my end of year. But, just rattling off a list of my favorite, 10, 15, whatever beers in order, just not my vibe. So I figured I'd mix it up a little bit. We're going to do a video here, all one video, all one stream. No practice, no cuts, no takes, just do it. And we're going to talk about our year in review, which is basically going over some things from 2023 that I think were pretty important, that happened to me, that happened on a channel, that happened with beer, those kind of things. Then we'll dive into some of my favorite beers I've had this year, or reviewed this year, not had. It's not going to be any 1 to 10 list or anything like that. I'm actually going to start from the oldest review I did and on to the newest ones and just kind of mention the beers that I thought really kind of tickled my fancy this year. And then we'll kind of got to do a little bit something different, which is our kind of take, our thoughts on the future of beer. What we think 2024 is going to bring when it comes to beer. Thoughts about things, maybe a couple predictions, all that fun stuff. So let's get the show on the road. 2023, very cool year. Every year seems to get cooler. But this year, especially with having Micah and my family, it just felt like a fresh new year. I was at my newest job for a whole calendar year. Mike is getting older and to the point where he's just super cool, personality, talking, doing a bunch of different things. So it's just been, from a personal standpoint, probably my favorite year in the history of my life. I love my wife, I love my children, I love my family, and it's bringing nothing but joy in general. And it's kind of like helped facilitate my joy for this. It can get a little bit long in the tooth doing beer reviews. My 2022 year was a little bit less than what I typically do, just from having, switching jobs and, having a baby and all those kind of things. I just didn't review as much, didn't have as much time. I didn't want to have that time. I wanted to kind of throw it onto my family, and while I still do that now, there's a little bit more regimen to our agenda and stuff like that. So it behooves me, it allows me a little bit more time to review. So I bumped up my reviews a little bit. Still not the several a week kind of thing, but it's been pretty fun, and I've had some really cool, forays into a couple different avenues of beer, going back to the Massive Beer Review Classics. It's one of my favorite things I started doing this year, which is going back and revisiting a lot of beers that I used to love and had back in the day that I reviewed or didn't review, and kind of re-reviewing those and kind of falling in love with those again. And just in general, just kind of getting a little bit more of a my love back, because I don't think I ever fell out of love with doing beer stuff. Just having fun with it, and it's been very, very cool. I've had some really cool visitors this year too come around. Let's see, Rampant Lion Beer Reviews came over from Scotland, James, and spent several days here in New Jersey. Went to a bunch of different breweries, had a bunch of different fun beers together, did a bunch of reviews together, on the road beer visits that he does a lot. Those should be coming up on his channel shortly. He's popping them off slowly but surely, so our kind of journey together will probably come up very soon. So definitely go check him out, Rampant Lion Beer Reviews. Why am I spacing on visitors? This is what happens when you do stuff live. God damn. I have to look stuff up, don't I? Let's see. Oh, Jesus Christ. How did I miss? Ralph from Barrel Monks Brewing used to be one of the King F's of F Mountain King S of F Mountains. When it came to beer males, he ended up becoming head brewer of Barrel Brewing. He came up and spent a couple days. We had a really good time hanging out and going about and doing stuff that way. We had Beer Tuber-palooza up in Connecticut. We ended up going to Steven, not a beer tuber, but you know who Steven is if you watch beer reviews, especially if you watch us up here in the northeastern part of the United States. Ended up traveling up there, going to a bunch of fun breweries, whether it be Long Live or Fox Farm, which was one of my favorite breweries, period, but just going to visit it just has cemented that thought. And it's just been a cool kind of like new exposure to a lot of different breweries and a lot of different beers. And then, you know, outside of the family personal stuff, not gonna lie to you, one of my favorite things about this year has been this shed. This shed has facilitated a lot of just awesomeness for me personally when it comes to just having a space in order to do a bunch of different things. You see what's behind me here, you know, a little bit of toys over here, there's stuff over there and stuff. You can't really make what's going out. Oh, I forgot to turn my oscilloscope on. And I wonder if that's sending feedback. Actually, I'm going to leave that off because I was getting feedback in a video the other day, so I'm going to leave that off for now. Anyway, if you were to look around, you know, I got a little home theater back there. You can't really see it. It's a 85-inch TV, home theater surround. You know, got my PlayStation rack system and all that fun stuff here. But more importantly, the coolest part about the shed is one is becoming more of a home. It's becoming more of a living space. It's comfortable here. You know, my dogs enjoy coming out here now. It's more of like a secondary, like a living room, or even just like a respite or refuge from just busyness of life, and that is a very cool thing. So finally getting this, it's not complete yet. I still have to run some electricity in here. This is all powered by extension cord, even though I do have it wired out for proper electrical. I have to put in proper heat. I got a split AC system that has to go up there. It's up, but the biggest thing I have going on over here is over here, which you probably can't see, but this is a turntable here. I have my mixing set up here for music, for DJing, which I did for several years, doing random different electronic music and stuff like that. And over here I have a bunch of like music making gear, electronic music making gear, a bunch of like Volcas and little modular stuff and sequencers and stuff like that. And there's a mixing board right here. That's been probably the coolest part of this kind of growing up a little bit in the shed here, is because I've been able to do music again. You know, was it last year or was it the year before? I ended up getting a beer mail from a brewery called Buried Acorn Brewing, and the person sent it off, a gentleman by the name of Sean. You know, he's like, "Hey man, I saw the reviews, you know, pretty cool. We'd like to send some beers off." And typically when anybody ever sends me stuff, I usually kind of creep on them to see who they are. And you know, I started looking up, and I just started to notice a lot of like connections between him and different stuff in my life, because he used to be he's a DJ still, but he used to do work at a record store that I used to visit in the late 90s. You know, we basically had a very similar path as far as our younger years, about the same age, and it was just weird. So I was like, yeah dude, the beers sound cool, but I'm pretty sure we've hung out before, probably at some form or fashion, or at least crossed paths. And just got to talk about music and stuff like that. And then he's like, "Oh man, you should come up and play music up here," because he ends up throwing, parties, DJ parties, music stuff up there at Buried Acorn. And I was like, well, I don't feel comfortable doing that, even though I have my turntables, I have my music, I never got away from it. I just haven't practiced in so long, and it's much of the world has passed me by when it comes to DJing. When I was DJing, especially when I first started getting out of it, it started to move to a lot of Serato Tractor stuff, which is digital MP3 mixing, beat auto beat matching, stuff like that. I was a vinyl purist. But you can't exist in that. You can't not exist in that world, especially going out and gigging and stuff like that. So I said, let me get my feet back under me. Let me get some practice in, and ended up buying some digital stuff to get me up to par. Because if I go up there and they just don't have a setup for straight vinyl, then I'm screwed. So, and I just started playing again. And one, I forgot how awesome the music is, and two, I forgot how much I love playing. So I've been practicing, and lo and behold, I'm going to actually be going and playing my first gig out. Playing music, I don't know, 15 years, maybe? That long? It can't be that long, but it's probably close. So, I believe April 6th or 7th at Buried Acorn Brewing. I'll post the link to the event down below. It's a bunch of DJs. It'll be going all day, most of the night, and it's just going to be an awesome party. I get to play out and from a bunch of people. Hopefully, I don't make a fool of myself and bring some cool music to the masses. So, yeah, if you live up by the Syracuse area, that's where Buried Acorn Brewing is. What is the event? Let me look up the event so I'm not just shortchanging it in any way, in any form or fashion. Let me see. Eclipse, April 6th at Buried Acorn Brewery. There should be a bunch of different folk at it, so I'm super pumped to go there. So yeah, April 6th, Syracuse, New York, Buried Acorn Brewing. If you live in the area, you ever wanted to meet up, drink a beer, check all that stuff, I'll probably go up either super early in the morning or the night before and then stay to the day after and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to that. You know, that was kind of like the bulk of my 2023 as far as my personal life that's kind of intertwined with beer. General 2023 stuff. Well, the other thing, the negatives. Let's go to the negatives 2023. Some for me, some from the industry. And just if we're doing like a pure year in review, my lack of travel. Again, that's self-imposed. That's because I want to spend time with my family. I don't want to get out much. I haven't really visited a lot of different breweries over the past year, in 2023. The ones I have been relatively local, within an hour maybe. I probably traveled the furthest, an hour and a half away from me, but minus Beer Tube Palooza, obviously, to visit breweries, and most of it has been just visiting places that I enjoyed. I'm not saying that's a negative, visiting places you enjoy. It's actually a very cool thing. It's kind of the whole impetus for whole Master Beer Review Classics, to go back to the things that you enjoy. But, traveling and interviewing brewers, doing a podcast, which I didn't do all last year, doing all those things, that's probably the biggest bummer for me, but it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off in life. It's a trade-off that you have with your family and what you prioritize in life. So I'm not saying that as an overt negative, but I do miss a bit of that travel. And probably I would say, let's go back to a positive. I'm really curious to see. My camera at a weird angle right now. Anyway, stop trying to fix stuff in the middle of the video. Beer's gotten really, really cool. Every year it's like lager's going to be a thing. Lager's going to be a thing. Well, I think lager finally became a thing. And it's probably going to turn into a bunch of different things. It's been really cool to see a lot of different breweries kind of just not just produce lagers, but produce them on a regular schedule and at a decent price point. I've seen a lot of breweries kind of dip their toes in the lower ABV beers, lagering beers, and just trying more cooler, unique stuff. And from big and small, whether it be, when I say big, I mean, the Trillium Treehouses of the world, down to local spots. I'm not talking about macro beer, to really just embrace a style that's been a long time coming, and just seems like it never was going to carve out a piece of its beer, the beer mountain, on its own, but it seems like it's really starting to take hold in a very, very, very cool way. And then probably the biggest thing that I've taken away from 2023, and I'm really curious to see what your thoughts on this from y'all out there, because I know there's some people that really refuse to acknowledge it to a point where it's actually damaging. The amount of breweries that are closing is absolutely insane. If you look at the Brewers Association, whether you think they're on the up and up or not, the data's there, man. Just from everybody kind of talking about, like, the industry as far as, the beer drinker in general, the amount of beer that's being consumed is down. So that's going to put a little bit of a curb, a little bit of a, clip the wings of the industry a little bit to a certain extent. And I think that has been, maybe the straw that broke the camel's back when it comes to a lot of breweries closing. And by that, I mean, like, I'm not sure how it is out by you. Maybe you're, in California, or you're in a state that's been relatively immune to this. But Jersey has had their closings, but I'm very, very close to Pennsylvania. And I want to say breweries in Pennsylvania have closed at an exponential rate since the beginning of the last year, 2023. It almost seems like there's at least one brewery closing a week. That's how bad it has gotten in Pennsylvania. And the weird part about the closing, and this is a conversation I'd like to have with maybe some professionals. I actually have a person coming down that works for BSG. Is one of the bigger beer supplier, grain and hop supplier, and we're going to I want to pick his brain about market trends and stuff like that. That'll be like a separate video or podcast or something like that. Is that when all these breweries kind of close and are closing, almost exclusively, they blame the economy. Take your political aside for a moment. And has the economy been craptastic? Yes. Is it getting better? That's without a doubt, yes, also. But they almost exclusively say it's the economy based on how things are. It's that costs are up on materials, costs are up across the board, employment costs, all those kind of things. And I'm not saying those things do not exist. But when I speak to those breweries that are closing, that's what they say. When I speak to breweries that are not closing, I hear none of that whatsoever. I actually hear the opposite. Not that costs haven't gone up. Yeah, they have in certain areas. Electric utilities, things like that. Some goods. Employment, as it should. We really, the rate of pay should keep up with inflation and market value, So that is something that should have been already up. But it's, a lot of materials have gone down. Several brewers at decently sized breweries have told me hops are half the price they were pre-pandemic. Like they pay, whatever a pound now that they were in before the pandemic, they're paying twice that. So it's not like across the board everything is infinitely more expensive. And the breweries that are thriving, the breweries that are staying open, the breweries that are growing, there's none of this, wow, we're doing horrible. They're not saying we're floating in money and everything is peaches and cream. It's a business. It's hard to run. It's akin to a restaurant business. I really want to hash out and see what's going on. My personal opinion is it's not just one thing. A lot of these breweries that are closing just made crap beer. And that's honestly brass tacks. That's a lot of it. A lot of breweries, especially when you're talking about the year or 2 or 3 leading up to the pandemic, when things kind of shifted, it was a license to print money. You open a brewery, and as long as it wasn't swill ultra garbage or infected, you kind of were going to be good. You were. That's how it was. I know people are going to be like, that's bullshit. No. I've been to these breweries. That have been closed in pre-pandemic. They were packed. And their beer flat out effing sucked. And they never learned how to brew, because a lot of these places that just opened and learned on the fly because it was just cheaper to do that than hire a professional. Just bad technique, bad practices, quality control, all those things come into play. And it seemed like those were a lot of the places that ended up closing. And once I get privy to the numbers and costs and things like that of what was pre-pandemic to now, it could be maybe form a better kind of idea of what 2023 had in store as far as closings go. That was probably the biggest thing, my biggest takeaway outside of my family and YouTube and all that kind of stuff, is just the amount of breweries that are closing and see where it's going to go for the future. I don't want to end on a negative note as far as 2023 recap stuff goes, but I think that's all I have here. Music, family, and a shed. Channel growth. Let's start there. Channel growth. Where am I at? Actually, I'm really curious to see where I'm at on YouTube. I'm almost at 10,000 subscribers, which is just bonkers to think of. I don't know how that's happened. But it's happened. Yeah, I'm a little less than 300 subscribers short of 10,000 subscribers, which I think is just absolutely bonkers. But I can't wait to get there. If you know somebody who likes beer, steer them this guy's way. But it should be pretty cool to hit that mile mark. I know a couple people, good friends of mine, who have hit that mark. I just spoke to him earlier, James from Rampant Lion Beer Reviews. He's actually, getting close to 20K now. So good on him. Very long form, very informative reviews. If you're not subscribed, please go do that. And it'll be cool just to see that number. There's something it tickles me pink that makes me happy about rounded numbers like that. And to hit 10,000 subscribers and to be so close is just a fun idea to think about. Whether it's 10,000, 10,000, is that even a number? 10, 100, 50, I'd still do it. You know, I'd still do this. That's what makes it fun. But just knowing that people are watching, subscribing, all that stuff. Very, very cool. Oh, let's stop on it. I've remembered one. Negative note. Commenting. I get a lot of comments. I don't reply to a lot of comments. I try my best. I really do. I don't know what's wrong with me. That's going to be a New Year's resolution. We'll get into the future stuff after our top it's 15 beers, by the way. Our top 15 beers of last year. I have people comment and I forget. I forget the comment, or I say I'm going to get back and I never get back. And every now and then I'll sit down and go, I'm doing this, and I'll comment as much as I can, like an hour straight. But I know I miss some of y'all. And just so you know, if I don't comment to your, if I don't reply to your comments, I apologize. I really do. I should, but I read them all. I think about them, especially if you have a question or if you say something. A lot of people end up being like, you should review this, and I won't even comment, but then I'll go to the beer and be like, this person told me to review it, and that's kind of my comment on that. Anyway, I apologize. I got to do better on that. That's a personal faux pas of mine, is the lack of commenting. So there you go. Anyway. Let's get on to some good stuff here. Let's get on my 15 favorite beers I reviewed last year. Like I said, I'm going to go in order. I picked them just from a list. I didn't rewatch all the reviews, so if I go into it saying it was mediocre, something about the beer made me think I really enjoyed it. So I don't know how much that means. That is fantastic. So what do we have up first? Let's do... How are we doing this? Come on. Are we going to do it like that? Or are we going to do it like that? No. Let's do it like that. Or like there. There we go. So this is the first one. This is Conclave Brewing Stingo Ate My Baby Strong Ale Aged in Apple Brandy Barrel by Conclave Brewing. I love Yorkshire Stingo. So when this beer hit the shelves, or should I say hit the shelf at the brewery, because it's brewery only, it was just one of those beers that kind of, the idea of it made me really, really excited, and just actually drinking the beer got me really excited. It's something about traditional kind of old ale style beers, strong ale, old ale, in combination with apple brandy barrels. Let me hit mute on this, because you guys can probably hear that, and it's probably talking over me. It really dug the beer. And I thought it was probably one of the cooler kind of barrel-aged beers that I can get locally, because not a lot of breweries do that kind of thing. You know, a lot of breweries end up, making an ale like that, or either a large brewery that already exists in some kind of larger fashion. Oh, look at that! We got a little bit of commercials. I forgot. Should have probably turned off all my ads on these while I was showing to everybody else, which is really dumb, because I think that if you're watching your own videos, you shouldn't get hit with ads. Don't you think that should be a thing? I don't know why it's like that. Anyway, but it was a really cool beer, and honestly, probably one of the more funner beers that I had. How do I change this? I know this is not very good video. Let me see if I can change. Oh, there it goes. See, now I know how to do things. So that was the first beer that we reviewed that I really enjoyed. Next up, not that one. I'm giving you a little behind the scenes on stuff. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Now I'm starting to get a hang of this. Herky jerky. One take. That's how we do. The next up was a cool beer that I found locally, which was a De La Sena and Oxbow Brewing. It's their Nomi Hottie Dry Hop Session beer with rice. I can find me some Oxbow Brewing in my parts. It's very few and far between, and I find De La Sena. They can be had, but I really do enjoy all their beers. And this one is actually coming from the De La Sena side, so it wasn't something that I could easily get from the Oxbow side of things. And just that combination of a dry hop session beer with rice, it just ended up coming off really cool, a little bit sake-like, and just the way those two breweries work as far as their combination of flavors, how they function, how they do all their stuff, just kind of got me all tickled pink. You know, it was a beautiful beer, as you can see. If I jump ahead, there's a nice kind of hazy yellow glow to it. And as far as chugger beers, it was just something that stuck in my mind. I'm really glad I got to find it off the shelf. I actually went back to the place that I purchased from, tried to get a couple more bottles. Gonzo. So hopefully I can find that beer some other time in the future, but I'm not holding my breath. Let's see. Next up on some of my favorite beers that I've had this year. This comes courtesy of a commercial that I did not think was going to happen. So let's watch this Lowe's Pro commercial. And this is when I was in the middle of actually making my shed. This beer, I believe, came from... I think it came from Steven. I could be wrong if I'm wrong. It is Lasting Brass Loon Maple Smoked German-style Rausch beer. You know, this would not be complete if we didn't have a smoked beer on here. So, you know, it just ended up being one of those beers that I was like, yeah, I think I'll review this while I'm working on my shed. There you can see me knocking out a bunch of... At this point, I think I'm painting after knocking out a bunch of electrical and stuff. And sand. No, I'm definitely painting because I see it paint in the corner there. But just, you know, that combination of the way that kind of smoked Rausch beer in combination with that little dollop of maple, because it wasn't super maple over the top, just kind of worked and just ended up being a really fun beer that I want more of. All the smoke are belong to us. I got a shirt. I made a shirt that actually says that. Maybe we should start selling shirts on the channel. We'll see. So anyway, that was probably, if I'm gonna like rank my like top 5, that might be up there as far as one of them. But this beer is listen, this beer is gonna be on my list from now to the end of when I stop doing reviews. So get used to it being here, because that's how we roll. Because it's my Microbrasserie beer. You know, for those who don't know, my son was born in 2021. And in lieu of that, I ended up getting a bunch of Old Stock 2021, and I'm going to review it every year on Micah's birthday until he's old enough to drink. And if he chooses to, if he wants to, he is going to, or he will, if he chooses to, review it with me, if he wants. So I figured it'd be a fun, long-term, long-form, long-con experiment to do with a beer and review the same beer over and over every year for essentially after drinking age stays 21 years. So we're on to, that was year 2, we'll be on to year 3 shortly, March, a couple months. And, you know, Old Stock has always been one of my favorite beers, but I've been a very big proponent of aging it. I think age is a must for this beer, and while I still stand by that statement, this year, 2021, might have been my favorite out-of-the-box fresh version of the beer. So I'm kind of looking forward to see how that ages over time. Let's see. This beer was a banger. An absolute hundy of a banger that, to be perfectly honest with you, I've had it a couple of times. I've actually bought it several times. I'm actually closing a bunch of tabs here just so you all can see what's going on. I don't want to overwhelm my computer with videos and stuff like that. Here we go. I have to... There we go. Back at it. Boom. Dark Horse. Black IPA from Autodidact Brewing. So Autodidact hasn't been around. I don't even think they've been around for a year yet. They're close to like Morris Plains, New Jersey. They're just outside of that, but they're close to there. You know, I popped in there with Keith from 93 Lumber on their opening day, and it was super busy. Had a bunch of beers. They had this. I brought this home, and I reviewed it, and it might be my favorite black IPA I've ever had. It almost reminds me of a lower ABV-ish Russian Imperial Stout, and just an absolute killer of a black IPA. You know, black IPAs for me are very, very, not polarizing, but very, they have to be right. If you don't do them right, they just kind of get a little boring for me, or kind of stop short of being really well done. When they're done amazingly well, which this one was, which not a lot of them are, it's a showstopper. And honestly, from a small brewery doing such an amazing beer, that's rich, chocolatey, with a nice bittering to it, but nothing over the top. It was just So good. So if you're ever in that kind of, they're in basically central North Jersey, right off kind of Route 80, right where Route 80 and 287 meet. That'd probably be the easiest way for me to explain to you also. If you're traveling that area, you're by that intersection of 80 and 287. They're not super far. You should definitely give them a whirl. Let's see. This one was a surprise because I found this off a shelf. In Pennsylvania, and that would be Northpark Brewing Company. It's their triple dry hopped Hop Food Gold Edition West Coast IPA. To find Northpark randomly off a shelf in Pennsylvania is just weird. I don't know why it would be there, but also this beer is like kind of like people freak out about this kind of beer, and I was just like, why is this here? So I got it, and it was for off a shelf in Pennsylvania. It was very reasonably priced. I want to say it was like $7-8 a can. You know, I mean, that's expensive for a beer if you think about it, but the kind of beer and stuff like that, so I picked it up, and it just ended up being one of the kind of just one of the better West Coast versions of new school West Coast-ness. Is that a word? Very old school, but new school leanings. Just a very fun beer from a brewery I hadn't really had much before. I know I've had a little bit in North Park. I think I've had a little bit in mystery beers. Very fun beer. Look how pretty that beer is. Yeah. Look at that. Clear, delicious West Coastiness. We should get back to more of that sucker. So, yeah. We're getting there. And this beer was, I don't want to use the word surprise banger of the year for me, because I don't want to do the brewery dirty by saying it's like I'm surprised their beer was good. How weird that they made a really good beer. That would be Pariah Brewing Company's Char Rye Whiskey Barrel Aged American Strong Ale. This beer was so good. So freaking good. Like obscenely good. It just basically, it very much invoked the memories of Hair of the Dog, in the way it was an American strong ale, but also still had some hop to it, and then just the way the rich caramels came off with some bittering, and you're getting that nice kind of barrel char. I mean, that's the name of the beer, just the way the barrel and the spirit worked with the beer. Oh, just good stuff, man. Pariah has had some misses for me, and it's been more, I think, transportation stuff. I think some of the beers haven't mailed well. For the brewery sends them, they come from Brian from Pariah, so I think that it's just been a transportation thing. But this one suffered nothing, and I wanted to save a can of it, I think, for the future. I still might have it in my fridge, but if not, I drank it, and that sucks because I want that beer forever. We are down to our top 10-ish. No, I have more than 15 here, right? Looks like I have 16. We'll start ripping through them so this video isn't too long. The process of me getting on the screen takes a hot second, and with these commercials that kind of pop in, it really does kind of piss me off. So, anyway. This one comes from a relatively new brewery. This is Schenker Brewing Company. This is a Hidden Grove Hazy Pale Ale. Schenker, they used to be Folksbier. They closed down Folksbier. The head brewer owner started producing beer, 12% Beer Project, brought back his beer under a different name, Schenker Beer Company. They make a bunch of different beers, lagers, goza, stuff like that. But this is like kind of like, I guess, their flagship beer, I think. And either this or their Emerald Gardens, I think. And this is just an awesome banger of a little hazy pale ale. Let's fast forward to the pour so that way I at least see what it looks like. I mean, not that you can't go, I'll put all these reviews linked down below, but man, it was so good. Just that next level deliciousness from a low ABV hazy pale that you rarely get from a lot of breweries, but it had that remembrance of what I typically loved so much about Folksbier, and just a super impactful but drinkable package. This is what I want when it comes to hazies. Next up, we're going to go to Massive Beer Review Classics. They should probably have more play on this, and we'll share a commercial for you. Man, I should be getting extra ad revenue for all this stuff. Man, I really should have turned off ads for all these fucking videos. Ooh, I cursed. I'm trying not to curse on video. I have a kid now, so I'm trying to skip. Rochefort 10. again, massive beer review classics. The whole point of this is to remember some of the beers in the past that you enjoyed so much, and maybe that drink as much anymore. And this proved it, man. This is the best quad in the world. It is. And it's been a year or two. I've had them over the years, but not in a review way. More just crack it open and enjoy it and think about it and whatever. But to review it and really dig into it mentally, just remember how great of a beer it is. And I implore you, if you've never had it and you don't like Belgians, I'm not going to say you're going to love the beer. But if you really did enjoy these kind of beers, enjoyed them in the past, and really do dig on some quads, it is honestly, it's one of the best beers in the world, regardless of style and what it's trying to accomplish and all those kind of fun things. It really does come down as just like next level, fantastical, delicious. I want to drink it all the time. Belgian quaddy goodness. What more do you want from that? Actually, maybe we want a little bit of barley wine up in the piece in form of the next. See, I'm trying to get the segue better. The next top beers of the year. Burlington Beer Company Mahogany and Tweed. I could not believe how much I love this beer. Not that I don't think Burlington can make really good beers, but you know, it's one of those things where it's a twofold issue I have when it comes to these kind of beers. And one, it's expensive. And expensive beer really does kind of, I don't know, it's hard for me to really get down with expensive beer because I don't like spending money. To be perfectly honest with you. And this is like 30 some odd bucks a 4-pack. Now you're talking about 16 ounces of a cognac barrel aged barley wine. I think it was $34. Okay, so we half that. 34, 17, you half that. You know, let's make it 18 for math being easy. $9. So it's $8 and change a can. That's cheap for 16 ounces of barrel aged beer. But I had to buy a whole 4-pack, and I was like, God damn it, why am I doing this? Screw it, I'm gonna do it. Glad I did it, because it was absolutely fantastic. One of the better barley wines I've had as of late, let alone quite some time. And just the way the maple, the cognac, and the barley wine kind of melded together, it ended up being just beautiful. Now, this was the 2022 version, so I can't speak of the other vintages, but I think Sean from NerdSense actually said that he had a different year of this, and it was absolutely fantastic, though. So knowing Burlington and their track record and things like that, yeah. This is me showing off that there's no alcohol by volume on the can, so they're trying to scare me or something like that. It was an epically fantastical beer. Let's see what else we got going on here. Did I queue up another video? I did. Look at me getting very professional now. Kind of impressed at myself. We're going with a little Master Beer Review Classics again. That would be 2 for this. In the form of Nickelbrook Brewing's Kentucky Bastard. I can find this beer by me. I can find this beer relatively easily. But there's one gigantic issue when it comes to this beer for me. And if you go watch the video, you will understand what that issue is. And that is cost. Again, we're going back to cost. Cost can be a very annoying thing to deal with when it comes to beer and speaking about beer and all those kind of things. But it really does hold like a weird place in my heart, this beer, as far as cost goes, because it used to be the most cost fantastical barrel-aged stout in the universe. Because I paid for this 500 ml bottle, I paid, I want to say $17, which is fine. Whatever. If you watch the video, I go, this is worth $17 for this beer. I used to get this beer for $12 a 750. Yeah, 750 milliliter, $12 American. It was like $13 Canadian. And that's kind of why I have a hard time buying this beer, because I used to get it for so cheap. Now it's so much more per ounce expensive. It's one of those things. Yeah, the mood struck me right. There's a place not super close to me, or not super far away from me, that has this almost exclusively on a shelf at all times. And I was feeling an itch, and I said, screw it. And I figured I'd review it. And I'm glad I did, because honestly, one of the best barrel-aged stouts I had of the year. I think, you know, I haven't had a ton of Nickelbrook. over the years. I had a ton of it back in the day when I was a lot more connected with the Canadian crowd, especially when my buddy Joe was down at Levante Brewing in Pennsylvania. When he went to brewing school in Canada, he would always bring back a bunch of Canadian stuff, Nickelbrook included. But this is one that I've always had for years and years and years. You can see this is a 2017 version too. And honestly, stripping that original price point from my head, I think it is an absolutely steal of a beer, even at that $16 price point. Look at that thing. Dirty glass. On the outside, not on the inside. And just, man, just good beer. Good beer. Good beer. You know what wasn't a great beer, but it's made this list anyway? This beer. How often do you get to drink 1993, 2003, 2013, 2020, 30-year-old beer? You don't get to do that much often. So this is Beer Tube Palooza this past September. On my way up to Connecticut, I stopped by Be United. Be United is importer of beer from Europe, and they had 30-year-old vintages of this for sale. I picked one up and I shared it with the guys. It was flat, it was dead, it was past its prime. But opening a 30-year-old beer with a bunch of people that, you know, you've met via Beer Tube Palooza and you've had a really good time with and became friends with, and just that was what made this beer special for me. Not so much that the beer was amazing, it was the company I kept with it and the people I got to share it with. That sounds a little bit sappy, but I'll tell you what, deep down we'll see this dude is sappy. So yeah, I'm telling you what, that was a great weekend, a great night, and actually I do not save. You used to remember the whole bottle behind the wall thing that I had of all the beer bottles and stuff like that. I don't have that anymore. I have one beer bottle in this whole place that I have kind of on a shelf to remember, and that is this beer right here. I brought it back from Beer Tube Palooza. That one will stick in the rafters. So, yeah. Not that I'm opposed to saving bottles. It's just I don't do it anymore. And, yeah. Mint Mobile. Which is annoying, so you guys get to watch the commercial. I'll skip it for you so you can watch a little bit of that, because I was waxing poetic about all this nostalgic stuff, and I forgot to cue up the video. But we're there, because on the next one, another local jam, Oak Flower Brewing. This is actually with Patio Brewing, which is kind of like a brewer that's trying to open his own brewery, and this is their English Mild. It was a pub ale. Just ripped it. Pub ale style. You're going to give me a beer, you're going to give me a pub ale, you're going to give me low ABV, English ales, you're going to do it right from a new brewery that's crushing stuff. I'm down. I'm buying. Is everybody going to love this pub ale? Are they ever going to make it again? I don't know. It was a small little collab. But from new breweries, Oak Flower, probably same as Autodidact. They're not been around all that long, maybe a couple months extra. Kind of relatively close to there, probably about 20 minutes away. More towards like Chatham, New Jersey. And if you're in that area, definitely stop by. They've been doing killer stuff there, and to see them do these kind of beers at such a young age as a brewery, pub ales, little grisettes, things like that, definitely worth a visit. And honestly, one of the better kind of English influence beers I had. God, I don't know, maybe all year. I don't think that's hyperbole either. I mean, I have my English beers. I have my fair share. I get them, you know, obviously I get them from Bond places, things like that. But it was one of the better ones I've had, let's put it that way. Not English, but we're back over to Europe. Yeah, the rot beer from Schlenker. This might be my favorite Schlenker beer. No, that's not true. Actually, I think I even say that in the review. The Helles is my favorite, but this is probably a very close second. It's one of the more richer beers, a bit more decadent. I haven't had the Schwartz beer yet, so we still have room for this to be superseded by that. But, you know, I love the Schlenker line. I love everything about it. Some of them I like more than others, but this is the one that really did it for me. And this is another one I got from Be United when I was up there. And just the amount of smoke, because it was definitely a smoke beer, but it was a little bit less subdued than what they typically do, but still very smoky. But it's just the beer was a little bit richer, a little bit beefier. It was kind of like, it was more intense from a malt side of things than the Doppelbock, not as sultry. But the way it played, the rich malts played with the smoke was absolutely fantastic. Now, that beer in and of itself is worthy of its own time on here. As you can see, I'm holding in my hand in the video you're watching right now, not a beer, but an actual liquor. Because we're going to cheat a little bit and put the Schlenker distillate whiskey on this list too. So when I was at Be United, I was lucky enough to see that they actually had the Schlenker distillate. They basically took a smoked beer and they distilled it into a liquor. And I did it after I did the review of the rot beer. And it was one of the cool liquors that I've had in my life. It very much reminded me of actually a Speyside Scotch. And just to have that sidecar of it is very, very cool. I actually have bottles of it bottled up right now to send off to Charles from Soul Talk. I told him I was sending off last week, and I'm horrible at sending stuff. I work 9 to 5 at post office, 9 to 5. But I'm going to send him off some stuff. So if you're interested in this, you're a liquor person, let me know. I can send some of this off to you. And it is a very, very cool just twist on quote-unquote beer. You know, it's not beer, obviously. It's liquor. But it also has the DNA of beer, which, hey, we all come from the same parts. Might be a little bit different. But yeah. So back over to the United States, Little Maine Brewing Company, their fall coffee stout. This is a classic because I reviewed it several years ago and I forgot how delicious this beer is. I'm not going to sit here and talk about these deep, rich nuances of this and the other thing. This is a coffee stout. End sentence. And I say that in the most beautiful way possible. A coffee stout. It's a stout with coffee and made perfectly. Or as perfectly as you could make a beer. Its simplicity of what it was is what made it a great beer, and the reason why I wanted to put it on here. Because honestly, you know, I love what Maine does. I love how they do what they do. I love everything about what they do, and just to see them not only just make a little bit of, I don't want to say new school stuff, because even their hazies are a bit old school, but to stick to their guns and do the old school stuff in their own way is fantastic. Speaking of doing their own thing their own way, Hazie. I did a Hazie retrospective. That's what this was about. This is me talking about all the times I've reviewed Hazie over the years. And it was still one of the better beers I've had last year. It's changed drastically over the years. Go find this review, 2582. Go check it out. And then I linked to all my Hazies one. There's actually a mystery beer in there too, which is probably the coolest one of the bunch. And you tell me this beer hasn't changed over the years. Everybody's like, it hasn't changed, you've changed. No. This beer has changed. I think it's back a lot to what it used to be. Not that beers can't come full circle and go back to the way it used to be, but the mystery beer one I opened, not the same beer, but still equally delicious. Absolutely fantastic. And honestly, probably one of the breweries that I kind of lust over visiting again the most. You know, anytime I can get up to that Stowe area, you know, on Trapp, Lawson's, you know, even going over to Hill Farmstead, all that fun stuff. Those are the places I want to go more often than not. And it just seems like Alchemist is just the one place I always ending up at after going to all the other places and go, why don't I just stay here? Especially now that they serve pours. Previously they didn't. Does not suck. Speaking of does not suck, segues are getting better. Sammy Klaus 2013 Barrique. This beer is bonkers. Bonkers. I've had it before, and I didn't think it was amazing. I think I linked to my old review of this. This is the classics again. I think I linked to the old review of this, and it wasn't that good when I had it this time. And I found this on a shelf in New Jersey. Several bottles on the shelf. It was sub $20, I want to say, which is a decent price point for this beer. $7.50. Subsequently, I think I've seen it at like 3 or 4 more bottle shops in New Jersey, randomly on shelves. So this beer can be had. It's not like, 2013, let's go find that. No, you live in New Jersey, in central to northern New Jersey, I will tell you where to go to get this if you want it. It's that easily, readily available. Raisin-rich deliciousness, a little bit of a decent amount of dark finishness, and just a decent amount of oaky tannins. Oh boy, man. That is the goods. The good stuff. And the good stuff, you know, I love it when they don't give me more commercials. Is the good stuff. And it doesn't have to be huge to be good stuff. It can be small stuff. Like this. Microbrasserie. Oh, you can't see it. There's the hat. Jacob, longtime viewer of the channels, owns the brewery, part owner of the brewery, sent me a hat. I actually should rock this. I have it up more as like a piece, but I'm wearing hats again, so I should probably rock that sucker. He sent me off a bunch of beers, barrel-aged stuff, hazy, stuff like that, but it was really his clean beers, his Kolsch and his Pilsner that really kind of blew me away. You know, anytime you take low ABV, low crusher beers and make them, as well as this is, at such a young brewery, it has to be championed. It has to be applauded. And that's why I put it on here. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say this is most impactful, most craziest beer that I've ever had. But it's really ultra well made and hit all the spots. Also, and this is probably the way, what I would classify it or compartmentalize it the best. It didn't taste like exactly like somebody else's beer. It tasted like their own beer. When you're unique with that, that's something to be, again, champion. Next up, a little bit more itty bitty jams. Probably my favorite beer from this brewery this past year. Oh, Hop Butcher for the World. This is their Folleto, Italian style pills. Listen, hoppy pills, Americanized hops, classic Pilsner structure from a brewery knows what they're doing when it comes to Pilsners, which is kind of like sneaky. Or like sneaky really good. Yeah, I'm down. I don't know what else you want more to say other than I think this is one of the best beers they make. It might not be my favorite, but as far as just execution, it might be the best. Honestly. We're going to go back to some classics. I don't have this one preloaded yet, so hopefully I can ramble and not get a commercial. No commercials, no whammies. There you go. Talk about classics. North Coast Brewing Company, back again in 2 places on this list. Scrimshaw. I forget what I reviewed. But, was it Greg? I forget who said, someone basically said, it might have been Greg, I forget who it was, said, man, I'm drinking a Scrimshaw right now. You should review it. I really enjoy it. And I go, I love Scrimshaw. I never, ever, ever drink it. Immediately went out and got a 6er of it, reviewed it. One of my favorite crushers of last year. I still don't buy it because I'm like very anti-bottle when it comes to like crusher beers. I just want cans. I don't know why, unless it's Miller High Life. Then I want in a bottle. I know I'm weird, but yeah. And here I try to open it with some weird extension of an arm for a monitor or something like that because I'm a dummy. But yeah, if you're ever looking for a super crusher and you want to try something different, if you've never had North Coast Scrimshaw before, I implore you, try it. It even ages well. You find this on the shelf a few months, several months old. It's still going to drink really, really nice. So, yeah. As far as little crusher Pilsner goes, I will drink that to the day hopefully I don't die ever. I think I'm going to live forever. Hopefully I'm going to live forever. So, another commercial. So you have to hear me. Oh, look at that. Just look at how beautiful that beer pours. Who doesn't want to drink that right now? Unless you're going to be drinking this. And that would be this beer. That would be Schloss Eggenberg. So we got a little bit, again, Sammy Claus. It's their brewery makes Sammy Claus. It's their collab with Shilling. It's their Convivial collaboration, Maibock. This can be had. I see it on shelves at Bottle Kings in New Jersey all over the place. I never thought I was going to see it because it came out and it just didn't hit shelves. And then a few months later, here it was, bum, 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 all over the place. And I have $3.99 a bottle, $3.50 a bottle. And I've probably ripped about a 6er of this off. In my area, it comes as singles. I think that's how they sell all of them. I buy one of these probably a week now, just because it's that good of a beer. Nice malt forwardness with a nice little hop presence to it. Beautiful lager. Just absolutely rich malt, but not overpowering. Just two worlds colliding. That Schilling, Schloss Eggenberg, beautifulness, collabing for, the goodness. Next. What do we have next? Oh, we have Schenker's coming back up in this piece with their Emerald Gardens. I actually mentioned this beer when I was doing their Hidden Grove. This is basically their IPA bumped up version of that, I think. It's kind of like it tastes the same, but just more volumetric. Just honestly, just world-class haze. I'm not going to sit here and say it's rewriting a book when it comes to hoppiness or doing anything insane. It's just really top-notch, hop-forward, ranky-dank, while still saying juicy, delicious haziness. Who doesn't want that stuff? People who don't like hazies, I guess, but, I don't get it. If you don't like hazies, that's fine, but don't poop on it. Well, don't yunk someone else's yum. Speaking of yum, Pliny. This came via Charles Social Talk. This is their Pliny for President. I think this is one of the best hop-forward beers that I've had. Period. End sentence. You know what I don't like about this beer? It's $40 4-pack. That sucks ass. I did not know that during the review. I guessed it was mid to high 20s. $40. That's crazy talk. Rush Driver, come on. I know it's hard. But this shouldn't be no more than... $7 a can, maybe if you're feeling generous, but absolutely beautiful, delicious, dry hop West Coast fantasticalness from a brewery that honestly doesn't really do much wrong. To be perfectly honest, we got one more left for y'all, and it might have been one of the best beers I had all year. To be perfectly honest with you, Vermontoise. I could have sworn that I have reviewed this beer before. I have not. But I had it before a couple times and ended up picking up a bottle of this locally. Hill Farmstead, Blaugies. Comes from the Blaugies end of things. And it's just a beautiful marriage between United States and Belgian Saison. Sean Hill went to Blaugies and worked with them to kind of help define what he wanted to do as far as Farmstead Saison, and they helped him along the way when he was first starting to make stuff. So to have this beer and have it be as pretty as it was and drink the way it was just a pleasure. And I'm glad I got to rip it. Look at that head, man. Good God. Beautiful beer. Carbonation out of this world. Went back. Didn't have any more to place. Super bummed. And I think that is it. That's it. That was my 50, it's actually 16 beers that I enjoyed quite a bit last year. Let me know your thoughts. Did you agree with any of those? Have you had any of those? Were some of those some of the best beers you had? Was there a beer review I went gaga for that I missed? Because that certainly had to be the case. Let's look to the future. We're going to rehash a lot of stuff we covered in the 2023 version. So we did the 2023 recap, did our 16 favorite beers we reviewed. Now we're going to look to the future, looking forward in 2024 to shed. Getting the shed complete. That's going to be fantastic. Can't wait to get the electricity running here. Actually want to put a little deck out front, run a couple little more kind of fun little things coming in here to where I can just make this more of a living space for me and my kids and my family. It's almost like a little getaway, a little fort, a fun house for us all. So looking forward to that. The family stuff is going to be fantastic. Mike he's in preschool, but he's actually going to go into the regular school system. He's just, from attitude to personality to everything, he's such a sweet and generous boy, and he's so kind. He's so happy, and there's not a malicious bone in his body. It's going to be a good year. It's going to be a very good year from a personal standpoint. The music stuff I already talked about. Like I said, moving forward, April 6th, Eclipse up at Buried Acorn Brewing. I'll be DJing, having some fun, drinking some beers. There's going to be several great, fantastical DJs there. So if you're in the area, stop by, chug a beer. We'll have some fun. The travel part. The part that I lamented in the previous one. I'm going to try to get out a little bit more. Can't promise a bunch of places, but definitely want to get a couple episodes of the podcast back out there. Now that I have the time coming up, hopefully I can do that a little bit more. Reach out to some breweries that I've always wanted to talk to, some of the newer ones, and maybe get a little bit more kind of weird with it, talk to a little bit more industry folk and stuff like that. And I'm curious to where beer goes. We talked about all the closures that have happened. Wonder if that keeps happening. What kind of growth is there going to be in breweries? And I guess that kind of ends up being more of a prediction thing. I think I've already seen this, and I think some of you have seen this now. I think beer is going in a specific direction, and I should say craft beer, because there used to be a two-party system when it came to beer. There was macro and micro. That's kind of craft and macro, whatever you want to classify it. It almost seems like there's now several like classes, weight classes in craft beer. It's not so much that there's craft and macro. It's now macro is its own thing. Macro doesn't care about craft anymore to a certain extent. You know, they did for a hot minute. Now it's, you know, they just care about themselves or something liquor based or soda or fizzy or, you know, hard liquor, hard tea, seltzer. That they don't care anymore. They're selling off their assets. They're not really messing with so much anymore. But on the craft side of thing, it seems like there's more. Division is a bad word to use because I think there's still, you know, the larger craft breweries are still down with the smaller ones. But I think there's definitely a class system now. You know, I think there's like the top tier, ultra heavyweight class in craft. You know, your Sierra Nevadas of the world. You know, those Allagaches of the bigger breweries. You know, the Bells, the Founders. You know, those level of breweries that are very, very big stones. There you have them. And then you have the next tier down, which is kind of like your upper level hype craft, you know, and breweries that produce a lot of beer, but on a different basis. Your other halves of the world, you know, your Treehouse of the world, you know, those kind of breweries. They're Russian Rivers. No, they'd probably be more towards the top of the other one. But you know what I'm trying to say? They're a little bigger, but they're still small compared to everything else. Then you have your kind of middle brewery. That is kind of like, you know, Equilibrium of the world. You know, they're big, but they're not hyper big, but they're still relatively big. I'm having a hard time. Lawson's and Fiddlehead and those kind of Alchemist, those level of breweries. And then you have probably two classes below that, which is semi-regionally big. You're talking about, if I was going to think of a brewery like that, God, why am I blanking? I had this all written down somewhere else and I forgot to bring it up. And then below that you have hyper small. And by hyper small, I mean places that are cool, just living in their world, their existence, the Conclaves of the world, the Twin Elephants world. I'm speaking about New Jersey breweries here. You know, your smaller breweries that are like, you know, they might distribute in the state, they might, or even the state over, or you know, they have a tap room that's quite busy. Maybe they have two locations that are quite small, but they service an area. They service what they do in a very, and they don't want to be bigger than their britches. Let's put it that way. And that's kind of the whole, I guess I would say, best way to kind of put the conversation is that breweries are closing at an exponential rate, and then craft brewery is getting way more diversified about what they do and how they do it. And that's my big prediction for 2024 is that I think breweries are going to subdivide into specific things moving forward. Hyper-specific breweries, for one. Like, we're seeing it already. Lager breweries. Breweries that just make lager, you know, sour program breweries, you know, just that, you know, places that essentially do just hazies, you know, places that essentially do just like old school styles. I think you'll see a lot of that. I think you'll see, and this is other half Treehouse, those kind of breweries that are going to Fox Farm that are going to do it all. They're not, you know, it's either or. There's always going to be places that do a little bit of everything. But if places are going to do everything and do it really well, a la Fox Farm, or you can have places that are just like, we're sacred profane, we're Shilling, this is what we make, this is how we do it. I think you're going to have that, and you're also going to have a lot of breweries that look at that class system and pick their lane. You know, some of these breweries, not all of them, but some of these breweries that closed are basically breweries that tried to go from one level to another. They tried to go from semi-big regional to bigger boy and didn't cut it. They didn't make it. They had to cut their losses and run. You know, some breweries invested too much because they saw the arc going upwards as far as profits, and they said, well, shit, I might as well dump a bunch of money in my brewery. I'm going to make it back in 6 months. COVID hits, things change. Beer drinkers go down, they're screwed. They project based off of the peak projections. And I think breweries you're gonna find a bunch of them be like, I just want to be this town's brewery, or I want to be this county's brewery, or I want to be the northeastern part of this state's brewery, or I want to be this state's. You know what I mean? Kind of pick their lane and stick to it. Outside of that, I think the tap room is gonna make a huge comeback now. You know, I don't know anybody that goes to bars really anymore. I mean, my mother-in-law does because she likes bands. So outside of music and maybe food, I don't think people just go to the bar to drink anymore. At least I don't know the people. But then again, I'm pushing 50. I think the tap room is going to be like it was back in the day, kind of like old school English pubby. Every town, every small town is going to have their brewery. Every small town is going to have their pub. Every small town's going to have the place that makes beer, and that's where people are going to gather. You see it already to a certain extent, but I think it's going to become exponentially more commonplace. We talked about lagers making their day, like finally the year lager. I think we're kind of in that area right now, so I'll make another step. I think classic styles are just going to make a comeback. You already see it. I mean, smoked beer made a huge leap and bound over 2023. This week in Rausch Beer, if you don't subscribe to the podcast, the Facebook group, all that stuff, get on that. But smoked beers in general have blown up to a certain extent. A lot of classic styles are coming back. Whether it be Shilling ales, amber ales, classic red ales. A lot of the beers that a lot of people turn their nose up to. One beer was blowing up during the aughts and the early teens. I think they're going to make a decent comeback here and have a nice kind of hay of it and see where it comes. Who knows? Maybe actually Belgian beers make a big comeback and people start really kind of getting into Belgian beers again. That would make this dude really, really happy because the more really authentic style Belgian beers, the more I get happy. We had that conversation about pricing. I'm curious to see where, by pricing, I mean materials, infrastructure, inflation, cost of goods. I'm curious to see where that goes. Like I said, hops are at a really, as far as I've been told by several breweries, you could be some random brewery that doesn't see this, I'm sorry, but I've talked to several breweries. Hops are way down, supply and demand. The same way breweries projected their profits to soar, hop producers, grain producers, they all projected the same thing. So if they project the same thing and they have a ton of product that not a ton of people need, prices can go down. It's called supply and demand. So I'm curious to see where that goes, how that affects beer. I don't think beer prices are going to go down, but hopefully they stabilize. On my channel, if you've watched, you've known I've really harped on, the Hazie IPA price point. I think pale ale should be right around 12 to 13, and I always thought double IPA should be around 16. I think you can add $2 to $3 to that now. I think 18 to 19 bucks for a double, and 16 bucks for a nice well done hazy. Hazy pale is kind of market value now. So obviously inflation has had an effect. I'm curious to see how it changes things, stabilizes those price points, changes beer, all those fun things. It'll be curious to see how that hashes out. And probably the biggest question mark, and I'm not sure where this is going to go because you're talking to a person that enjoys these things, non-alcoholic beer. Curious to see where that goes. Because you're seeing it across the board. There's non-alcoholic White Claw now. Why anybody would drink White Claw to begin with. And that's not me shitting on seltzers. I just can't drink unsweetened seltzers. I just can't do it. When I bitch and moan about carbonic acid in a beer, that's all that seltzers are. It's just fruited carbonic acid. And to me, I just don't get it. I can't process it properly. Now, if you add some kind of sweetener to it, I'm fine with it because it dulls down that carbonic acid. I just don't get it. So, but that exists. And if it exists, there's a market for it. There's a ton of breweries. A ton. Whether it be old guard European breweries to small little craft breweries to everybody in between makes non-alcoholic beer. Is that going to sustain? Is that going to exist for the long haul? I think it will. But I'm curious to see where that lands because so many people are making them. I'm curious to see if that ends up being a big growth market for breweries moving forward, especially in 2024. And that's what this is about, looking to the future in 2024. What else? Beer reviews from this guy. What do you want to see? What do you want to see more of? What do you want to see less of? It's going to be a great year. Thank you for everybody that watched. Thank you for everybody that subscribed and commented, even if I didn't comment. That's what I see in the future, too. Me commenting on stuff more. I guarantee that's the case. we're at a decent amount over an hour of unscripted. Seeing a couple notes. I think I did all right, except for little hurdles there with the videos. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this year in recap 2023, my best of 2023, and what I expect going forward in the future. Please let me know your thoughts. Have any ideas? Have anything you'd like to share? Like to see me cover? Comment, suggestion, all that fun stuff down there. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you're enjoying your year so far. Hopefully see you next time. Cheers, y'all.